Hi everyone, how's it going? And welcome to episode 6 of DeeDee's Voice. So in today's episode, we're going to be talking about church hurt. Some years ago, someone recommended a book to me and it basically was titled So You Don't Want to Go to Church. Now, today, it's actually a Sunday and I went to church. They were giving out these daffodils, which were quite nice. I said, okay, why not? It's the first time in 4 years that I've actually gone to a church, as in gone to a church that I chose to go to. The thing is, I think it's very easy to judge people who have a hard time with their faith. I'm a Christian, so I grew up in the Methodist church up until the age of 9, and then we went to a Pentecostal church and the denomination was actually RCCG. And I would just not do that again. I'm going to keep it so real with you. For me, I would not do it again. And the thing is, you cannot paint every single church the same way, but I just feel like the doctrines, how people behaved, what they felt like, the spiritual abuse and the manipulation, hey, it was rife. It was big in that church. And I feel like culture, when it comes to religion, is such a big and bad thing sometimes, because it's instilled to the extent where it's like, you need to respect me because I'm a small god, small g, and if you don't, you're going against the word. And the thing is, a lot of things that were preached and so on, you know, as you start to become that generation, I'm a millennial, you become that generation that questions things, you become that generation that thinks, oh, that's not right. We've become a generation that actually takes mental health a lot more seriously than our parents' generation. And so when you're in a church that doesn't understand that, or when you're in a church that is really focused on giving and doing all these different kind of things, you'll start to understand the prosperity gospel. You'll start to think, okay, if I'm doing all these things, why is my life not getting better? Since that church, so I left that church in I think 2016 when I graduated. I did join another church in the night, and then I went to do my master's and then I stopped. I have tried here and there, but I just decided just to take a break because also life was happening. In late 2021, I sent my friend Osa a message via WhatsApp and I told her, oh, if I stop being a Christian, would you still be my friend? Because I kind of felt almost like a child asking my friend that question. But I knew, and I know how much of a strong Christian she is and how much her faith is important to her. But my faith was really shaken at that point, and I was just like, do you know what, I don't really know if I really understand what I'm doing. I don't know if I just want to continue doing this thing because of the sake of it. I don't feel good, I don't feel happy, I feel like I'm struggling mentally. I'm at my wit's end. But things almost got worse after that. She basically told me, no, I wouldn't, I would keep praying for you. I think we had a little chat about that, and then that was very comforting to hear, because I know that there are people who would literally leave and abandon their friends when they are struggling, wouldn't really pray for them that much because they don't really want to be contaminated. And let's talk about contamination. I went to a church 4 years ago, and at that time, before I found the church, I was in a very bad way mentally, but I had gotten significantly better at that stage. I still had a lot of work to do. And I remember sending in a testimony at the time. I wrote it via email, and trigger warning, I spoke about end of life in terms of like suicide and how I felt at the time. And I remember getting a call and you know, having a conversation, and then I was basically told that, oh no, we can't actually read that testimony out because we don't want to affect our congregation. You know, if anyone's having those thoughts as well, we don't want us reading how you once felt to basically affect how someone else is going to kind of, maybe like someone else will maybe use that and maybe take their own. I'm like, that's not how suicide works. Like, that's not how it works. At that point, I just realized that, do you know what, forget this church of a thing. Like, I'm not interested. I don't want to get so close to people when I'm literally sharing, oh, I'm not there anymore, but God has been good to me. You know, since joining your church as well, I felt a bit uplifted, and then you're coming to tell me that, oh, actually keep that. So one thing I will say is, mental health, being in such a low space and place in your life, yeah, will change something in your brain. I can't explain what, but it will change something in your brain, that even when you are healing and you have healed, you still have to look out for the triggers. And I feel like people who may not have been that in that place and in that pit, however that looks like to you, it changes. And I feel like that's one of the reasons why I just felt like I'm just not interested. Now, don't get me wrong, not all churches are the same, and human beings run the church that we see, you know, all around. So it's not necessarily that people are without sin, without blame. No, human beings are very much fallible, which means that they are susceptible to getting things wrong. They are not God. So with that in mind, there's grace, but then there's also wondering, like, is there any actual point of me actually connecting and stuff? So I'm making this video because whilst it's still early days, I prayed a prayer years ago, and I basically was like, God, I'm in a very bad space. You allowed certain things to happen. I was very, like, you know, blaming and things like that. You allowed things to happen. We're not supposed to question you, but what the hell is going on? And then I basically was like, do you know what? I don't know what the future's going to hold. I don't know what it's going to look like for me. It's looking very bleak at the moment. However, I want there to be a time whereby I at least feel like I'm willing to listen to scripture. I'm willing to kind of have Bible study, because that's another thing. My friend, Osa, she asked me some years ago, oh, do you want to do Bible study together? And I was just like, no. My older sister was like, oh, you know, can I just take you to my church? I was just like, no, I did not want to hear it. So I basically said to God, you know what? There's a bit of a problem here, okay? A big one, which I feel like you may be able to fix when you actually heal me, when you actually get me to a place that's better. I'm going through life at the moment. That's fine. But I pray that I get to a stage where I want to go back to church. I want to at least try it out, because it's very comfortable just to sit at home and not do anything. Some days have been good days, I'm not going to lie. But there's something that was just like, I'm looking around, I haven't quite found the right one for me from what I've seen. But can you, like, see what you can do there? Work on my heart. And I prayed that prayer. It was a very simple prayer. And I'm not going to lie, I didn't really know what was going to happen afterwards. But then I just said, you know what? I've said it. Move on, move forward. During that time, I've really been able to grapple with the fact that being loved is a big thing, because a lot of people feel let down by church communities because, yes, again, they're humans. Yes, they're going to get things wrong, but the love isn't quite there. The community is not quite there, or if it is, it's cliquey. So people will feel excluded and they will not feel cared for. Do you understand? And so my prayer to anyone who's actually listening is that before others, I just pray that you get to a stage and a place in your life where you feel the fact that God is there. I was going to say God's love, but that's such a big thing. That comes, I feel like, later. But you feel like God is there. I've been having conversations with God, I'm not going to lie. And sometimes when I go on my walks, and that's actually how I came across the church that I visited today, I came across that church, that building, but I pray to God. Sometimes I do have my earphones in, because I want to, you know, I am there, but I don't want people to think, is she talking to me? Or, you know, so that's just kind of what I do. Life is hard. Life will test you. Life will push you. I am grateful for growing up in the church, because there are certain values, there's certain things that I did see. The church wasn't all that bad. Of course it wasn't. But I think being able to grow and develop, and also the work that I do, I see things very differently. You know, when it comes to mental health and so on, when it comes to how to deal with people, I see things differently to maybe just what meets the eye. I'm not really someone who just follows blindly just for the sake of it. That's just not who I've been. I've always questioned things. I've always wondered. But it kind of made me think and ask questions. And I don't just do things because people tell me to. If you know me, you know. I do things because it makes sense logically. But I feel like there's still more to discover. So maybe in some years' time, I'll be able to make another video to see where things have actually grown to. But yeah, for anyone who hasn't gone to church in a long time, for anyone who's wondering whether it's worth going, for anyone who has actually been through life and is struggling and is literally holding on for dear life, I hope and pray that you get to a stage where you actually feel that you are not alone. But yeah, this is, I suppose, my diary of going to church for the first time in 4 years. See everyone again in episode 7. Take care. Bye.